What up? T-Bob here.
And Jake as well.
And look at you. You done stumbled upon little OTB Saints, where we bring you all the latest black and gold coverage.
Who are the Saints going to draft? Who's going to be their quarterback? What does the salary cap look like? All that information and more.
Hope you enjoy it. Like, subscribe. Your New Orleans Saints, for the second year in a row, will have the easiest strength of schedule in the entire NFL. At least when it comes to combined win-loss record, games versus teams over 500, and games versus 2023 playoff teams. The Saints will play a schedule with a combined win percentage of .453. Not very good. Both them and the Falcons play schedules that are 131 and 158. And the Saints will play 8 games against teams above 500 and 8 games against playoff teams. Now, partially this is misleading because basically if you're in the NFC South, you're in this. I mean, Tampa's tied for 27th right there. Carolina's 29th, and Atlanta, New Orleans tied for easiest in the league. So a lot of that is just being in a bad division. But Jake, I don't take any. I don't take much solace in this fact for 2 reasons. First, combined win record from the previous year is really sketchy when evaluating strength of schedule.
Yep.
A lot of stuff changes in the NFL. Like, the reason why this year's schedule was so abnormally easy is the context in which you faced these teams. You faced teams when their starting quarterbacks were hurt. You faced teams that you thought were going to be good that ended up being awful. So, like, I don't know that this guarantees that these Saints will have an easy schedule this year. It gives them a good chance of having a manageable schedule. But, like, so, but it's not going to be easier than this year. I'd find that hard to fathom. And after watching you fail this year, I don't have a ton of faith that it's going to be any different next year.
No, I mean, Falcons are starting over. They're going to have a new head coach. They've got about $35 million in cap room to spend. All right, so what do they look like? Carolina, we know they're starting over. They're going to have a new head coach. They've got $37 million to spend. And so who can they bring in? Because to your point, like, you can change your roster. Like $37 million, you can go out there and you can change your roster. Who do they bring in as head coach is going to be important in both scenarios. It feels like Atlanta is closer than Carolina is. I mean, Carolina does have – it's crazy. They have one of the better defenses in the NFL, but their offense was dead last. So I would assume they're going to bring in an offensive-minded head coach. Well, how much better can Bryce Young get? Like, that's going to be important. So, like, the teams in your division are going to be somebody that, because they were so bad and they're starting over, you feel like that portion of the schedule that's going to be weak, that portion will probably stay weak. But to your other point, like, you don't know how good the rest of the NFL is going to be. And, again, $35+ million for these teams. Who can they bring in?
Like, you know, you got to play Tyson Bagent this year. You got to play Josh Dobbs this year for the Vikings. Like, you didn't win all these opportunities either. You got a lot of nice breaks, and you were unable to follow through, so I don't have a ton of faith that you will.
The Saints?
Next season.
In the salary cap, they'll find a way to get under because they always do. But to give you an example, they're minus $72.3 million.
Yeah.
The other teams have $38 million to spend, $34 million, whatever that number was, and you're minus 72. So you'll get under, but what can you really bring in that's not already there?
Bilbo asks, would you rather be in the playoffs and lose the first game or not be in the playoffs at all?
Depends on your, I mean, like.
I think it depends on the context.
Yeah. Like the Cowboys, you want to be in the playoffs because you felt like you had a roster that could go compete and make a run. You're the number 2 seed.
Yeah.
I'd rather have that and the opportunity than to not make it.
I don't think, like, Rams fans are too upset. It was a season that looked bad for a while. They finish hot.
They were supposed to be one of the bottom 5 teams.
Yeah, and so they almost get it. So, like, you know, again, we talk about this all the time in sports talk. Been doing this job a long time now. A decade come October of doing daily sports talk radio shows. What determines the temperature of a fan base are not the results themselves. It's where do the results land in relation to the expectation, right? Because 12-5 for one team is not 12-5 for another, or let's say 9-8. 9-8 for one team is not 9-8 for another. One team can want to fire everyone, and one team can be ecstatic. I mean, look at the Eagles. The Eagles went 11-5, and Nick Sirianni may get fired if they lose in the playoffs.
Yeah, he's brought them to the playoffs 3 straight years now.
And gone to a
Super Bowl last year.
And he might get fired if they lose in the playoffs. But that's because relative to their expectation and the expectation they built through a lot of this season, starting 10-1, the collapse has been disastrous. And it's kind of funny because like everybody's like, oh, well, it was all the coordinators. That's why they were so good. And I understand. I don't say that's wrong, but they did go 10-1 without those coordinators. And then something happened where everything just went disastrous. So yeah, so I don't think you can answer that playoff question in such a binary way, right? I think it kind of matters on where you're coming from. Like for the Browns a couple of years ago, they were probably pretty disappointed this year, but it was just making the playoffs that was like their huge deal, their championship, if you will.
If they fire that man after going to the postseason,
Sirianni,
3 straight times,
Welcome
getting
to
to the Super Bowl,
welcome to
just
Philly.
because they've had a rough stretch here at the finale of the regular season.
It's crazy. I know the talk shocks me too, but it's so funny to see how different franchises are managed. And here you have one that you think in the Saints that thinks they're the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's so crazy to watch Mike Vrabel get fired, and you're not just running back with Dennis Allen, but you're really doubling down.
Yeah. Oh, you're
to the point where you're going to have to make
in.
multiple like major player changes over the offseason, likely to try to get the culture correct.
Like you said, everything's a little bit different. Every job. I mean, like Mike McCarthy, I think he's probably going to get fired. It's because of what he's not been able to do in the postseason.
Deserved or undeserved?
I would personally like to have him back, but I could see both sides of it.
This feels like you want him fired, but for some reason you want to be on the record as a sane. You want to appear more sane and logical, and so you're saying you'd personally want him back.
No, I want
that?
Mike McCarthy back. I thought that Dak made a 180 under him. Look, the only thing I give him credit for as far as bad last night was his team didn't look prepared to play coming in. The play calling itself is fine. Dak just didn't make a lot of the throws. So as far as the offensive play calling goes, I don't really blame Mike McCarthy. I thought for the most part he's done a pretty good job this year.
God, that pick six was so bad.
Yep.
I don't know what happened there. And was it
the
play before?
Team.
Was it the play before or a couple plays before where he threw it into a real tight window between
that's the
three
thing.
guys?
He had 2 interceptions.
Ooh.
Should have 4. They dropped 2.
Oh, man. Bilbo says Laramie Tunsil got a playoff win before the Dolphins did, so all the memes about how much the Dolphins benefited from that trade are no longer valid. True. And Laramie Tunsil completely shut down one of the most fearsome defenders in the entirety of the NFL to set up his rookie quarterback to go ahead and dominate. Greg Lamont says, Taylor, so what do? Trade Dak?
You don't extend him. You don't give him that big contract that he's been wanting.
No, I mean you definitely don't extend. No, I think that is very abundantly clear. I think if you're Dallas, you move into trying to plan for the future quarterback wise, but unfortunately, you're not gonna have a very good pick this year. But don't worry, the Saints won't take anybody away from you. So, wow, just amazing black and gold takes right there, Jake.
I don't think I've ever heard any takes that are better than the 2 guys that just gave you that take.
And you can keep getting them by going ahead and liking, subscribing, ringing the bell to get notifications when we post. Have a great day. We'll see you on the next OTB Saints.